We start. It goes on.
Yeah.
And then you just want to look up people who like in the weight room. Are you sure you have to do YouTube today? When is this? Oh, dismiss. I'll try. Exercise. Oh, exercise. It's saying this meeting is, I think we. Okay, good. Got it. So I think here, like, it'll show you.
It'll say
And
accept.
you just accept them.
Oh, fine, perfect.
Okay, beautiful.
But I spoke to my father. He said we should like start from the beginning of the next topic, and we'll get back to the Gemara he's in the middle of, because he was in the middle of the Gemara with you. So that's what he told me is the best idea. So start on the Zayin Amud Aleph, on the Mishnah, which is on the top 7A. 7A1. It's on 7A1 by there's two Mishnahs, one after the large space, one on towards the top of the page. So start with one towards the top of the page. So the Mishnah says that Misha Nigmar Dino Ubarach, somebody who he was found guilty on charges of death. And he has made verdict went out, sealed case, Gemar Din, like the term we used by the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Gemar Din. So this guy had his Gemar Din a little early, in the middle of the year, but then they gave him their Gemar Din, he's going to get killed. And what happened to him? Misha Gemar Dino Barach, his Gemar Din, his decree was sealed, Barach, his verdict was sealed, and he ran away. He jumped loose. So then what happened is, I guess the time comes sometimes, is that they tracked him down, people of the town, they brought him back into that court. It was a couple months later, just give an example. And the guy comes, he's like, give me a retrial, I'm gonna win the case. I have some good reasoning that the original, I want an appeal, let's do it again, because after the time elapsed, I'm assuming could be, he's saying there's new information that's seeping out, I have what to win the case by now. They brought him back. I said, I don't think people usually, I'm assuming that because I don't think people usually give a hand themselves in. So the halacha is, he came in front of that court. They dragged him into that court, the same court. Ein sotrim estino. We will not retract the original verdict, and he will no appeal, no nothing, no retracting, and we just take him out to the gallows or whatever was his. No new chance. Now it happens to be, just to point out, is that the halacha is that when a guy's being to be killed, we make an announcement. We say anybody, even after the Gemara Din, make an announcement as we're taking the guy, we're sending him off to so he's on his horse, we have him ready in the car, we're in the horseback then, take him out and we make a big announcement. Anybody has any reason to anybody has any more information on the story that we could save this guy, anybody has anything to add to us so we could retract everything we did, we're going to give the guy another chance. And even, I think the Rambam, I think that the halacha is that when the guy's on the way, so we still, like, they're looking back, and if anybody came to the court with more information, we wave like the flags, and the guy in the horse down the road knows to look back, like waving anything to get the guy to, so if the flags are waved, we're going to bring him right back. That's before social media texting and everything, or emailing, calling. That's what we did. We used to try to save the guy. Even after it's already time, he already got the sealed deal. So over here, it would seem is that we're talking about the guy didn't come with any new information for us. He just says, I'm gonna do it. This time it's gonna be better. This time it's gonna be more. So if he didn't come with any more reason for us to retract the original verdict, we're not gonna just say it because he says so. But of course, if you come with good rhyme or reason to change his original verdict, then of course we would listen like we do every time. So he would be retried, or we would open up the case again. Exactly, we'd open up the case. So this guy, we're not giving another chance. So I'm trying to explain is that would be because this guy didn't come with any additional information. He didn't come with any additional reasoning. He's just showing up like, give me a retrial and I'm going to win on the retrial. That's what he's basically saying. So we're not going to give him that retrial. He escaped. He escaped. He jumped. Yeah, he escaped. So basically, the guy jumped court where he was about to get killed. He got that car waiting for him to take him away, and he left. We brought him back into that Bezdin. He asked for a retrial. He didn't. I'd assume he didn't come on his own. People usually don't do that. We bring him back into that Bezdin. He's like, give me into that Bezdin, that courthouse. He says, give me a retrial. We say, no retrial for you. You don't have any additional information. You don't have any. Oh, somebody's waiting. I'm sorry. No, it's not. It's in the waiting room. How do I hit it? Admit.
It's just a,
He doesn't have any additional. It's good. Sound good.
yeah. You said you here?
So he doesn't have any additional information to prove his case. So then we're not going to give him the right to the retrial. He didn't bring any more information. He just says, just give me the retrial and I'll win on retrial without having a reason, a reason that would make us assume that he will win on the retrial. But of course, if he would come in with some valid information, some valid reasons, we would give him the retrial. Now, the little point that we just would make in the Mishnah, it says he came in front of that Bezdin. They dragged him down to that Bezdin. They dragged him down to that court. What happened? They dragged him to a different court. I guess let's say he ran to California and they track him down there and they bring him to the court in California. Will we give him a retrial there in that Bezdin or not? The Mishnah sounds a little bit like, it sounds a little bit from the Mishnah. The Mishnah adds, Ubalifnei Bezdin. He came in front of court. They brought him to court. It says Ubalifnei Oto Bezdin. They brought him to that court. Why does it have to be that court? Let's say he came to a different court. Then we'll give him a retrial. That's what it sounds like a little bit.
They brought him back to the same court.
That's what it sounds like. What happened to they brought him to a different court? It sounds like from the Mishnah, maybe we would give him a retrial. That's what it sounds like. We'll see the Gemara. We'll talk about this. If they brought him to a different court, if we will give him a retrial or not. Yeah. Then the Mishnah continues. Kol makom, any place. The Kol makom. What's the second line? Yeah, fine. Now, kol makom she'amdu shnayim, any place where two two witnesses get up, v'yomru, and they say, me'idim anu b'eshploni, we are coming to testify about so and so. Shenigmar dino bebezdin shel ploni ploni, that in so and so bezdin, he was found guilty of charges of death. So, which means we're in a new chain. Two witnesses come into a bezdin in California. They say, this guy was found guilty of punishment worthy of death in New York. That's what we come in at the bezdin in California. Two witnesses come in that we were in the courthouse. I guess, I don't know, maybe we were jury duty in New York, whatever it was. We were there. We were hanging around there, and we saw that the bezdin gave him the verdict of death, and he ran away. And now he's still alive. So obviously something. So we're coming to testify against him in California. And he even gives information about the case. You can't just say it's just like, yeah, he was tried in some bezdin. He actually has to say which bezdin it was. He has to say what day of the week it was. The Mishnah says, he says, who were the witnesses? These two witnesses in California tell us who were the witnesses that testified against him there in New York to tell us about this case. And if they do that, then the halacha is, the Mishnah says, Ploni of Ploni Adav, so and so were the witnesses. They recall what they saw. Harei zeh harei. We will kill him. Boom. That's enough for us to kill on the grounds that they retell us. They tell us what happened there. They relay that. These are witnesses, new witnesses, which relay the information that they saw in Bet Din. They were hanging around Bet Din, and they saw that they gave the verdict for death in Bet Din in New York. Now the guy's in California, and he comes along, and these two witnesses, like, we were hanging around the courthouse back then in New York, and this guy obviously ran away, and and that's why he's here in California, and now we're coming to testify against him that his verdict was sealed in that Bet Din, and therefore this new Bet Din will kill him. This new Bet Din will kill him. Now, the Mishnah over here, just follow, the Mishnah does not say we give him the retrial, right? It says, boom, finished. And this is clearly in a new Bet Din, because they're recording, they're telling us what happened in the original Bet Din. And just as it does not tell us anything about a new trial that he could ask. It's the same two cases of a guy escaping. They do not review the sentence. Two cases. The first case of the Mishnah says when we brought him back into that Bet Din, that we kill him. The second case of the Mishnah says we brought him back into a different Bet Din, different courthouse, and we will still kill him. But we said the beginning of the Mishnah sounded like that we will only not give him a retrial when he shows up to that courthouse.
Sorry, why are they giving him from prison or whatever it is? Like, why are they calling?
I hear the question, but if he's obvious, I'm assuming that he's claiming that he has reason to win the case. So it's like the time, after 3 years over here, I could, I could prove my innocence. That's what I assume. But it's definitely a point that we're seeing. Even the guy who ran away was still having some, still looking for his,
Escape, now we're putting you into we can finally see you later. Not talking to you per se.
I hear that.
Got it. Doesn't seem like they're giving a retrial.
Right. That's the Gemara is going to ask that question, is that it seems that we're not giving the retrial in California, even though he went to a new Bet Din, and the beginning of the Mishnah sounded that only time you don't give him the new retrial is only when he showed up to the same Bet Din that we already that gave him the original verdict. Then they showed up to the same courthouse. That's what's so. That's one part of the Mishnah about giving the guy a retrial or not giving the guy a retrial. The Gemara will expound on how to answer this seemingly contradiction. One place it says specifically in that Bet Din, the other place that we will not give him the retrial. And the second part of the Mishnah sounds like that even in a different Bet Din, we will not give him the retrial. That's some contradiction the Gemara will deal with. So we'll wait for the Gemara. Now the Mishnah continues a whole new halacha. Sanhedrin noheget be'eretz uvechutz la'aretz. This that Sanhedrin used to kill. This that the high court used to kill, the Jewish high court used to kill, it was not only in Eretz Yisrael, it was not only in the Holy Land, it was also this that Bet Din killed was also in Chutz La'aretz, also outside of Israel, outside of Eretz Yisrael. Now it happens to be is that there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin that explains is that this halacha that Bet Din could kill even what about nowadays? If we would have a balance, we're going to start cracking down on things. We want to kill. Can we do that or not? So the Mishnah says over here, seemingly, that the Sanhedrin, the high court that kills, they hold court whether in Eretz Yisrael and also in Chutz La'aretz, also outside of Eretz Yisrael. That would seem is that even nowadays we could have courthouses technically that could actually kill. That we could have a high court outside of Eretz Yisrael over here in America. But the Gemara, it seems that there's a Gemara that says that this halacha, that it's even in outside of Eretz Yisrael, I didn't. I'm not sure. No, it's him. So this halacha would not apply nowadays because it only applies when the Kohen is in the Beit HaMikdash. When we have the Beit HaMikdash around, then we have this law that it's both in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. We have the high court, but nowadays we would not have the high court because as long as the Beit HaMikdash is not around, the halacha is you cannot have high court in outside anywhere basically. You have to have the Beit HaMikdash in order to have the high court, which is something very fascinating. What will be the reason for that? So I think this would include that we will punish we'll give out the death penalty. Because it needs to be a special type of court in order to give out the death penalty. That's how I would think what it means. That's what I was assuming it means. Right, exactly. Right. What is? No, so that's what Mishnah says. There is no difference, but it happens to be the only time we can have it is when you have the. Now there's a whole new halacha, which this is very fascinating. The next part of the Mishnah. Well, first it doesn't even seem like a halacha. I'm going to try to explain what the Mishnah, what the halacha is coming to say. But this is a whole very fascinating part of the Mishnah. How often did Beit Din kill somebody? How often? So how do you know this? So that's what we're going to discuss right now. That's our Mishnah right here. Mishnah talks about this. So that's what our Mishnah talks about right here. Is how often do the high courts kill? How often? So here there's a big debate in the Mishnah. And there's a lot of opinions, how strict should you be on these criminals, maybe? What type of law should you have? Strict on the criminals, maybe not so strict. How do you set up the law? Are you that rigid Beit Din that's gonna not criminals stroll the hard hand or the soft, like how do? So this Mishnah talks about how often the Beit Din kill. This is that famous thing that Beit Din killed. Maybe not so very rarely. It's from right here. This is the source to all that. The Mishnah says, Sanhedrin hahoreget echad b'shavua. A Sanhedrin that kills once in 7 years, nikrat chovlanit. They're called chovlanit. What's chovlanit? They're like the destroyers in Israel. They call it chavlan. What's it? How do they say it? Terrorist? How do they say terrorist? I don't know. I don't remember. But basically, they're too rough, basically. That's the point. So that's once in 7 years. That's the first opinion of the Mishnah. What? No, we're not saying wicked. The point is that they're too harsh. They're bruisers. Like those big bruisers. I guess that would be the more English type of word to use. Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah Eimer Echad l'shivim shan. Once in 70 years. Now, what does he mean over here? Once in 70 years, if you kill, you're considered also too rough. That's what it sounds like from the Mishnah. The Gemara will discuss. Maybe all it means to say is once in 70 years is normal. Like that's a normal amount. Not that he means to say once in 70 years are considered overkill. Literally, once in 70 years is maybe normal. The Gemara will discuss what he means once in 70 years, but once in 70 years. That's the next opinion. And then comes. Yeah. And then we have Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Akiva. That they come and they say once in 70 years, no, that's already too much. Ilu hayinu b'Sanhedrin, if only we would have sat in the high court when they carried out the death penalty. You know what? Lo nerag adam me'olam. Nobody would have ever got the death penalty while we sat on that seat in the courthouse. Nobody would have ever got the death penalty. That's what they're saying. Never. Not even 70 years. That's what they were saying. No, they said they didn't sit. If we would have, whoever was on the seat, they believe that once in 70 years, maybe that would happen. They're saying whenever, if it would be not happening. When we're on that seat, not happening. That's what they're saying. Not killing anyone. And then comes along, So it could be that the Gemara will ask a basic question that if you have the information, they came into the Beit Din They come in with the testimony. We ask them the basic questions that all about the dinim. There was a certain protocol that everybody needed to do. You can't just two witnesses come in. We have to just drishot v'chakirot. We have to listen to what they say. We have to go and search in what they're saying. We interrogate the witnesses. We scare them off a little bit. We try to make sure they have good information that everybody. And then they're saying is that we would have a system that it would never kill. So how would they do that? The Torah says there's a certain set of rules. You follow it and finish. So how would they be able to say such a thing that they will never kill? That they're going to face, we're sitting there, not going to how can they do that? There's halachot about when you have the right information that you will kill. That's going to be a little complicated. And the Gemara will expound on that, what they did in order to make what they would have done, what their system would have been to make it that when the witnesses come in and they tell us information, that they would somehow, seems like they would do some strong cross-examination to get the witnesses to trip up. That's what we'll see in the Gemara. That's
Or
point.
to get the person being accused maybe to admit it, because then, like, they admitted it, maybe.
But even if he admits it, we'll still kill him.
I'm saying, like, if he admits it, what's the worry about killing him? Now, if he admits what he did and it's punishable like that.
It could be we still wouldn't kill him. So now comes along Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. What happens after such talk?
And this is the last shot. We never kill him actually.
So what happens after all this talk, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? Now the Rambam, it says in the Mishnayot, is that of course if they after their whole system of how they would interrogate the witnesses, they still would have been able to. The witnesses would not have gotten tripped up. The witnesses would still stand. Then Rabbi Tarfon, everybody would agree you could kill 1,000 in one day. There's no such halacha that you don't kill. The point is they're saying they would set up a system that would.
This is only for witnesses?
This is only for this is for anybody. People kill people. People that do Giloy Arayot. Anything.
What is the
Such a
it's more
course.
like a quota.
No, he was not saying that you need to do this. He's saying, let's say, the average according to the system that he runs. No, so that was your.
If your numbers are you're killing 30 people in 70 years, then something must be off in your.
Maybe the people in your generation are Shahid.
No, so if that's the case, then they would agree to that. I guess they're talking about in their times, the regular society, what it would be. But that's a very good point, is that it sounds societal. And that's what we're asking. What's the halacha that the Mishnah is saying? That's what, I can't get names straight. Nathan. They're mentioning basically what the halacha is. The Mishnah is saying. The Mishnah is not coming to just say facts of how often does Bet Din kill. They're saying what type, Mishnah is coming to say halacha, what type of system should you have? That on average, what would happen according to your system of judgment? That would be basically what you were saying. It's the system that you run. Now comes Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and he says what everybody wants to say, basically. And this is what everybody's thinking probably, is that, you, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Kiva, you sound like you're being so nice and so good for society. You're being so good. You're saying, no, I'm not going to kill anybody. No death. Comes Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, says, Af hein marbim shofchei damim b'Yisrael. You guys are causing murder. By you having your system, by you having the way that you judge, that's what's causing murder in the streets. Nobody's, as Rashi said, nobody's scared of the courts. Nobody's scared they do anything, and nobody's nobody's scared that their fate will be met in the courthouse. Not going to happen because Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Kiva are saying that the system of the courthouse is not. So that's this whole everything a new type of problem. The courthouse being too lenient. What does this bring about? The Mishnah says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, what happens? Being too lenient is going to bring murder in the streets, and therefore you cannot have such a policy. That's this argument. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is taking the other opinion, is that your system has to be harsher. You cannot have such a soft system. That's what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is saying. You'll see the Gemara on that. It's going to be very fascinating. Which means we want to ask the question, how will Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon, they're saying you have the soft hand, and it has to do with, there's a mitzvah to try to find a zchut for the person. There's a mitzvah. So they're saying, listen, you have a mitzvah to try to save him, do what you can to find a zchut for him. And he's saying, no, you're causing murder. So how will they respond? What is their response to that debate?
All these rabbis, they are part of the 17,
They actually weren't part of it. They say, if we were part of it, what would we have done? What would have been our system?
They were part of the 23 judges of
So-
the Sanhedrin.
So they were not in a time where they did the Dinei Nefashot. It could be they were in a time where they did not do Dinei Nefashot. They only did Dinei Mamonot, but that they were a part. Because it's only monetary law. They never judged. They would have been part of it.
If someone, the 23 judges
Right.
need to approve.
Yes.
It's not like one big judge and the 23 like the one.
No, they're all
All big judges.
who? All these Tanaim?
Yeah, the 23.
Yeah, they were the greatest ones we had. I'm saying these were the, they were 23. Yes, I think so. Yeah, so they would have been part of it if at their time, they would have been part of it to judge it. They would have, just at that time, they did not judge. They did only at their times, yes. But if they're saying, if in our time we were doing the fashot, if that would be what we would do, this is what would happen. So it's very strange. What would the Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva answer to this claim? This sounds, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, just takes the cake. He argues on that and he says, how can you say such a thing? You're causing murder in the streets. How can you say such a thing? So I just wanted to mention there are other halachot. It's just to add, there are other halachot about when there's problems in society, in Jewish society. Because let's say there is lots of murder going on in Jewish society. What would Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva do? So in Shulchan Aruch, in Choshen Mishpat, a lot of people don't know about this. It's right in the beginning of Choshen Mishpat, Siman Beis, second Siman, in Choshen Mishpat, that any time where something is breached, whether it's murder, whether any issue that's going on in the Jewish community, then the Bedin, the Gedolim, have an opportunity, have the rights, and what they're supposed to do, what they should do, is they come to clamp down. And when they come to clamp down, it's called Hora'at Shah. It's a way of acting just because it's the time asks for it and beckons it. What we will come and do is, even without witnesses, maybe as long as we have some sort of things to base our decision on, we will kill people, we will put people in jail, we will rob people, we will do things. We have a system. We have a system when things get out of hand. We have that in place. So I was just thinking is that since we know that halakha is true, and that even, by the way, is that the Shulchan Aruch says that even for nowadays, if anything gets out of hand, and you know how often you're going to get it, you have two witnesses with the warning and everything. Let's say something would get out of hand, we have a way to fix it, a whole new track, not going with the regular track of the systematic law that we usually use, a new track to clean up shop. So we have that track. We're talking about the regular track. So of course, if things get out of hand, we would go and we would start, or even, so now I would assume what happening over here, if we go with that, is that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is saying, you're making, to what's Rabbi Shimon Gamliel saying? They're responding to that. Let's just try to follow the conversation, probably went on. He's saying, you're causing murder. How could you be so soft? They'll say back, listen, if that's a problem, that people are loose and people are not scared of the courts, you know what we'll do? We'll come and we'll clean up shop. No problem. So it could be that on that, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would respond, is that even if you're going to clean up shop and you're making, exactly, that's what I was thinking, is that don't make the problem in the first place. You're causing an issue and then you're going to fix it, better not do it in the first place. That's like that. There's two sides to this story. But of course, we're never going to allow it to be, is that there's going to be so soft, nobody's going to get killed in 70 years. And then if people are killing and it goes, it's a problem, then of course, Bedin has a new track, and even Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon will do that track of Hora'at Sha'ah. The time beckons us to clamp down. We will come clamp down, clean out, even without the two witnesses, even without the warnings, even without total proof, 100% proof. We will still mete out his punishment for whatever he deserves. That's the what? There. With they will kill.
With no witnesses.
Right. Say again?
They're gonna kill someone.
With no witnesses. Yes. If the time, if But it's a whole new track. It's a new track. It's not the regular way that we act. This is not the regular law. It's just a new law that for the time when the time needs it. So that's the fascinating always question, how strong or soft, and then what does that do to society and cause? How does that have society? How does that affect society? So now the Gemara continues. We're talking about giving the guy a retrial. When the guy ran away, and the Gemara asked that question that we asked in the beginning. What do we do if he came in front of a different Beit Din and he asks for a retrial? He ran away from the first one, and then we caught him in California. We bring him into court, and then he says, "Give me a retrial, and we win my case." Do we give him the case or not? So let's see what the Gemara says on this. Lifnei oto bezdin. Lifnei oto bezdin. In front of that Beit Din, Mishnah sounds like who the Ein Sotrin. There in front that Beit Din, that if we brought him back into the same courthouse that he was found guilty the first time, then we will not reopen up his case. We will just mete out his punishment. But halifnei Beit Din acher. But what happens if he showed up to a different Beit Din? He showed up to a new courthouse. What will we do then? It sounds like that we will open up his case because maybe the new court will find a reason to his innocence. So we should give him. That sounds like from the beginning of the Mishnah, we will open up the case and give him retrial. But then the Mishnah continues. Kol makom sheyamdu shnayim. Any place that two witnesses come in California to Beit Din v'yomru, and they say me'idim anu eshes poni shenigmar dino bebeit din ploni poni. We will come and testify about so and so that in New York he was tried and he was found guilty and his verdict was sealed for death, and he just ran away. And we come in California and we say that to the courthouse in California. The halacha sounds like from the Mishnah, no, we just kill him. We don't give him a retrial. We don't open up the case again. That's what the Mishnah sounds. So how do we answer this seemingly contradiction? Do you give him a new trial in the new Beit Din that he shows up that we drag him down to later, or you do not give him the retrial in the new Beit Din? So the Gemara says a very, very fascinating answer to this. The Gemara says, Amar Abai. Abai says, Lokash Han be'Eretz Yisrael. This is talking about an Eretz Yisrael. It's not. We can answer the question. At the beginning, that one part of the Mishnah is talking about an Eretz Yisrael. And we'll explain. Is that if the guy runs from Chutz La'aretz, from outside Eretz Yisrael, to Eretz Yisrael, we will give him a retrial there in Eretz Yisrael. But if he runs from New York to California, we will not give him a retrial. It depends where we tracked him down. If we tracked him down in Chutz La'aretz, we tracked him down, we will not give him a retrial. We tracked him down in Eretz Yisrael, we will give him a retrial. Now the question is, what is that system? What is the difference if you track him down in Eretz Yisrael or not? So Rashi says a very fascinating answer to this to explain the Gemara. Rashi says is that there's something called that he's going to, and the Gemara. So the Gemara continues and explains. The Gemara continues. We'll read the Gemara inside. What time is that? I just don't want to stop too late. 7:25. Fine. So the Rashi says, and the Gemara says a term mipnei zechuta de Eretz Yisrael, because of the merit of Eretz Yisrael. So what does that mean? Rashi says is that will help him in the zechut, the fact that he went to Eretz Yisrael. In that merit, it could be when we retry the case, when we open up the case, there will be found something to prove his innocence or to get rid of the original verdict against him. So it seems there's a special zechut of going to Eretz Yisrael that he gets. So according that will make it that when we think, the guy's in the court, he's being judged. What happens? Of course, you got the information and the information's holding against you. You lose. With you, you win. No, it has to do with a person's zechutim. What type of zechut does he have? He's standing in court. What if they're going to find him innocent or guilty? What does that have to do with what type of zechut he has? And therefore, if he ran to Eretz Yisrael and he has the zechut of Eretz Yisrael, the fact that he went to Eretz Yisrael, then when they reopen the case, we will find his innocence. Or there's a chance we'll find his innocence. And like we spoke out before, is that as long as we have a valid reason to think that if we retry him, we open the case, that he will be found innocent, then we always would retry the person. Like, let's say some more information would come forward. We would retry the case. So this is similar to that, is that we have a new reason to think that he will be found innocent. And of course, we're happy to retry somebody's case. The only reason we're not ready to retry the guy's case on a normal basis is because we don't think what changed. We have the same case, same everything. What changed that we should retry the case? But something here changed. This guy got an unbelievable zechut. I'd like to say a fascinating story is that somebody who I know well, young guy, had a very bad report from the doctor, dangerous, deathly dangerous. And he went to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, the phone of the and Rav Chaim, 2 days after he got that report, Rav Chaim told him, move to Eretz Yisrael. He moved to Eretz Yisrael, and Baruch Hashem, he's still fine, and he's the case is much better, and he's not he's healthy, he's fine. So I was wondering, where did Rav Chaim Kanievsky get that? So it could be, you know where he got it from? This Gemara that we just learned right here. Is that the guy has his decree sealed. What happens? He goes to Eretz Yisrael, he could reopen his case. And in that zechut, he could be saved.
יוסף, חזק וברוך.
Maybe the witnesses.